What's up, everybody? Unplanned live stream. And actually, the live stream that I did plan for this evening, I moved to tomorrow evening at 7:30. We will chop it up about this and that. But I happen to be catching up on my new YouTube feeds, and I was catching Roland Martin, his podcast or his show, and they're talking about, I guess he has Pastor Jamal Bryant on his show, and he's talking about the Target fast and I guess he's been recently attacked by some Trump supporters too. Now, mind you, I've heard a lot about Pastor Jamal Bryant, not so good things about this man. He is one of those, I suppose, Democrat shill pastors. And I thought it was interesting to see him on Roland Martin today because I follow a channel called Truth Unedited. And if you follow Truth Unedited on YouTube, he's a biblical scholar. And this brother likes to dive into just the truth of the Bible. So not the indoctrinations, not what somebody has dictated or cherry picked. The brother really comes from a clear perspective of how God wants us to view his ancient text and actually digest it. So I love channels like that. But consequently, he had a let me go to his recent video. It should be in my notifications. He did a video recently on Dr. Martin Luther King. And in this video, he calls Martin Luther King Michael because apparently the whole character of Martin Luther King is based off of just, I guess, a stage name placating off of the Protestant Martin Luther to give him more, I would say, credibility among those who followed him. So, Truth Unedited is talking about Martin Luther King and how Martin Luther King was really an operative. And I've seen several Black people talk about Martin Luther King being an operative. And shout out to Michi X because she, I guess, deep dived into why she believed that Martin Luther King was an operative. So now here I am again looking at this brother who's talking about the Black church and the history of the Black church and their ties with Freemasonry. And this goes into the levels of Freemasonry. And at the bottom, you will have these Black churches, these pastors, and also these Black fraternities. And, he's making some really interesting points in this particular article. So I want to go in here and just play Truth Unedited a little bit. And then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about Roland Martin with Pastor Jamal Bryant because I think, just watching Pastor Jamal Bryant on the Roland Martin show, it really validates what Truth Unedited is saying about Martin Luther King, these Black churches, how they have been leveraged. And he even talks about how Martin Luther King later on essentially, I guess, had some sentiments that he had led his people to a burning house, right? So let's go and talk a little bit more about, let me see what he's saying.
Marketing tool to liken him more to Martin Luther of the Protestant Reformation. They did not have the internet back then and access to, unless you were a Mason, you would not know what these people were doing in their lodges. And eventually, as Freemasonry spread amongst the Negroes, there were Prince Hall Mason lodges spread around the country, bringing the Negroes in Masonic light, moving fully away from the Most High and moving towards a different goal. There were now two groups of the Black community. There was the initiated, those who were under the false Masonic light, and the uninitiated, those who were not and knew nothing of it. And the initiated had more power and support than the uninitiated. And the majority of the uninitiated seemed to be unaware of the divide as a whole.
So this brother is saying that under Reconstruction, there rose two types of black people in America: the initiated, those who were linked by some white non-black connection to Freemasonry, and basically the rest of Black America, which is a bulk of them who were not linked, who were not initiated, who were not these enlightened ones. So obviously, you can see a pattern of segments of Black people wanting to be elevated above other Black people. And that's very important because when we want to talk about Black unity, coalition and stuff like that, black people historically, have had a track record. And I do agree with Umar to some extent, is there's a lot of black people who wish that they had an idea of white power, and when they get even a fragment of it, right, they are very much in their brains elevating themselves above black people. So he's trying to tell us kind of the birth of these segments of black America and why it's so important for at least true believers to understand sort of what you're believing in and how these Freemason blacks basically infiltrated the black church. So when you're scratching your head and you're perplexed as to why you have these political forces so woven into the house of God, right? There's a lot of explanation for that. And again, a lot of that comes from dark organizations that have nothing to do with the Most High. Matter of fact, some of them, they may even try to leverage a belief in the Most High for credibility.
And also think about it. If they even saw them gathering, they would have just thought it was a club. They did not have the internet back then and access to all the books containing the secrets. They were not in abundance. Nobody would know. So they would just see them doing these things and just think that they were on the rise. Now, a huge way that spread was these Prince Hall Masons started creating their own churches, and this is where we see the biggest group of black churches in the country grow. The African Methodist Episcopal Church grew, and this church was created and led by Freemasons, giving Masonic control over to the church. And while this grew, the Boule was also being established, which was just another group of Negroes built within the walls of Freemasonry that were about creating even more division and distinction from themselves. They were the black bourgeois class. As I explained in the video about the Boule, these were the house Negroes used by this country to control the black community.
The gatekeepers,
what I'm
basically.
Getting at, and what I hope you can see, is that in the praising of Martin Luther King Jr., we are all praising the house slave. So then, by definition and consequence, by following the house slave, you are actually following his master's plans and his master's agendas. So understand, going forward, I will not be referring to Martin by this name because this name was used as more of a gimmick and marketing tool to liken him more to Martin Luther of the Protestant Reformation.
So how many of you even knew that Martin Luther King's name was not Martin Luther? That this was really a gimmick to make him more creditable by likening him to Martin Luther of the Protestant Reformation. And there's documentation apparently that Martin Luther's father changed their name for this very reason, because obviously they were going towards influence.
His original name was not Martin Luther King. His original name was Michael King Jr. His daddy changed their names to bring about more effect. It is said to his dying day, many of his closest relatives still called Martin Mike. That was his name.
This is a free country. You should respect his wishes and call the man Muhammad Ali.
His mama named him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. That's right.
Anyway, as I said, Michael was a Boule member, and he was given a great task of building a bridge for the American Negro to cross over into the American Babylonian society. He represented himself as a Baptist minister of the faith of Jesus Christ that sought after equality for his people. But he was leading his people along with the rest of the world who believed him. He was leading them to accepting a path leading to a new world agenda.
So I wanted to play a little bit of this, and I will definitely, let me get to my chat, and I'll put this in the chat too. But I wanted to play a little bit of this so that it kind of, excuse me, it kind of segues into what I want to talk about, what Roland Martin is talking about, because, you know, in essence, Truth Unedited is saying that, you know, these black churches, they're basically psyops for black people. They've been for a long time. You know, a lot of these people who lead these churches, and ergo a lot of these, you know, civil rights initiatives and stuff, these people have Masonic backgrounds, and a lot of times their Masonic foundation is not really even of beliefs that are rooted in anything black. It's really rooted in white power. And again, these people are trying to get fragments of that white power, you know, by being agents to mislead their people. All right. So I say this to say that Pastor Jamal Bryant is on Roland. He was on Roland Martin, right? And apparently, a number of companies have rolled back their DEI initiatives, right? And first of all, again, I think, you know, DEI, what it is, and DEI, how it was promoted, um, how it was leveraged. I mean, it was just a train wreck to begin with, on so many different levels. And even though DEI, you know, in, I think, in the spirit of what it attempts to do, right, it ultimately sort of leads people to question whether or not people are truly qualified for positions that they are selected to have, or are they just meeting a matrix? And it really kind of does give affirmative action on so many different levels. But this is not black specific. DEI has never been black people specific. And I've said it before, white women dominantly were the beneficiaries of DEI. But nevertheless, there's a number of black organizations that do not like the fact that Target and other organizations have decided to roll back their DEI initiatives. And because of that, they have decided to boycott Target. Now, I happen to see somebody post some numbers that Target lost $15 million in their, due to their DEI rollback. Now, according to a number of online sources, that is not true. That Target has not lost, what was it, 15 billion since these DEI boycotts or whatever they are have started, right? But I thought it was very peculiar though, because as Pastor Jamal Bryant is talking to Roland Martin, I couldn't help but like see how this boycott is actually hurting black people. So, for example, Target, you know, they have their Black History. They have their observing of Black History on their website, right? It says celebrate Black History Month, right? And on Target's website, it links you to all of these black owned products, right? Black business products, right? This is what Roland Martin is showing on his show. Target's website, and I'm looking at this from Roland's show. I'm going to go to Target's website myself to see this, just because I'm looking at this link from Roland Martin's show. Let me see if Target still has their Black History Month promo up here. Let's see. I'm on the home page. Fun and fresh. Viral hit this month. Viral hits. I'm seeing a lot of black folks being advertised on here, just like it's a lot of diversity on here. Celebrate Black History Month. Here we go. So Target, as of today, in my research, they have a whole spotlight on Black innovation, black business owners, okay, on their site. Now, I'm looking at all of these businesses on there, a variety of different types of black businesses from all kinds of, that you can get all kinds of different things. I'm looking at over 1,446 results. So, like, this is how many products that they are selling from black entrepreneurs in Target, right? This is great to me. I mean, I would think if I were a black entrepreneur, I had a product and it was being sold in a major retailer like product or like Target, I would be pretty stoked. I would be pretty stoked, right? And I wouldn't feel like just because Target has made some adjustments in whatever DEI, program that they had, right? That this would impact me unless Target started pulling these products from the shelves. But it doesn't look like Target is doing that. They're just saying, hey, we're rolling back our DEI initiatives, right? And a lot of that stuff was, a lot of these companies were showboating. Mind you, nobody knew what DEI was until 2020, right? This is when they were putting on the racism hard. They were trying to make us all divided with hyper racism and stuff like that. This is when Joy Reid, I think Joy Reid's show got on, MSNBC, NBC, ABC. They were hiring all these black people to talk cash shit about black, white people causing racial division, right? Right. So all this DEI stuff came around 2020. I think it was part of that whole ESG thing to get people feel good investing into some bullshit. Right. It didn't really fly over that well for a lot of people, and I don't think it was executed well. I don't even think a lot of people understood what the hell they were really doing. Right. But off of that, I'm looking at all of these black owned products in Target. They're actually linking people to these black owned products. So, where's my problem? There is a Target boycott right now, right? And just listen to what they're saying.
So you see down here where they have all of this. They have a button down here called Shop All Black Owned or Founded Brands. So when you click that, there are 1,135 results. Now, last month there were more than that. You had some black-owned brands that will actually pull their products from Target stores. Jamal, you had a brother.
Now, I'm going to say this. I don't know when Roland had his looked at this page yesterday, I guess. He did this 9 hours ago, and I saw 1,035. On my view, today, Target has over 1,446. So it looks like they have added black-owned businesses. They have not taken away black-owned businesses, okay? But off of that, right, he did mention that some black-owned businesses have pulled their products from Target store because of their position on the DEI, right? Okay, right? This is what he's saying. So you're going to pull your products from the main retailer, your main distributor, right? Because you were in your feelings about how this company chooses to make hiring decisions or whatever they choose to do. They have your products in their store. They have your products in their store. They're highlighting your products in their store. They're linking people to their store. They're saying that your product is a part of this historical month and people should check it out. And you mean to tell me there are black business owners that are actually pulling their products out of Target? Like, how is that productive? That's not going to make Target change their mind for DEI. They act like black boycotts of products don't work, okay? Black boycotts of products, modern day boycotts of product really don't work like that. Like, we're not going to get a Bud Light effect from Target. First of all, the company is just hanging in there, right? But we're not going to see black people pull a Bud Light on Target with this boycott, number one. But number two, I am just perplexed as to why these business owners think it's smart for them to pull their products from Target. Like, where else are you going to distribute them? I mean, obviously, Target was your best option because you're there. So, where else are you going to distribute these products? And I guess I'm trying to understand the moral compass of pulling your products from Target because they don't want to bow down to an initiative DEI that just came on the mic in 2020. Half of the people who are talking about DEI didn't even know what it was like even 10 years ago. So it's just perplexing to me how you have these black businesses who are willing to hurt themselves over some bullshit. And they're not going to really hurt Target because black people, yes, we have good buying power, but we're not like the major consumer base for some of these stores. They can survive without our money. And trust and believe a lot of us ain't surviving without them. We will fold before they do. But let me know what you guys think about
Brother
this.
into a church a couple of weeks ago who was in more than 1,000 Target stores, and it's a clothing brand, and he pulled his product to honor this boycott effort, correct?
So brother had his clothes, his brand, in over 1,000 Target stores, and he pulled his brand out of Target to honor this boycott. This is what they're talking. This is what they're saying.
A couple of weeks ago, who was in more than 1,000 Target stores, and it's a clothing brand, and he pulled his product to honor this boycott effort, correct?
That's correct. Black Men Smile.
And so, so the goal is to get 100,000 people to sign up for Target Fast. That begins, is it March 5th?
Yes, sir. Next Wednesday, we're up now rolling to 70,000.
So 70,000 people signed up. Your goal is to get 100,000 by next Wednesday, March 5th. So you got 30,000 to go.
That's correct.
Walk folk through the thought process of how you decided to not call it a boycott, but to call it a Target Fast. Explain.
Now, this is where I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to let him explain how he got to this, not calling this initiative a boycott, but calling it a fast. I'm going to go to this, right? I'm going to go to his point, and then I'm going to jump back over to Truth Unedited so that I can really just demonstrate the point that just because a person has pastor behind their name does not mean that they are not an apostate. Does not mean that they are not leading you astray, distracting you with the bullshit in Satan's world. So let's hear what you guys say, Mr. What I believe to be an apostate.
Because my call, Roland, was directly to the black church. I wanted the black church to have skin in the game. In the emergence of Black Lives Matter, this is the very first civil rights movement where the black church is not on the front line and a faith leader is not the drum major.
Right. So they ain't making money off of these protests and these hustles and all this shit. So they're not really liking that very much. They're like, this is the first time the black church hasn't been the drummer boys for the protests, right? So they're trying to get back the black church's influence in the minds of black Americans and, especially in their disenfranchised spirit minds.
And so I'm mindful that other boycotts are moving forward, but I wanted the black church to say that our head is not in the sand, but that we're aware and we're lifting our prophetic voice. Lent is the holy season for Christians that goes from Ash Wednesday to Easter, so that while we're withdrawing our funds from Target, we're also focused in prayer to take the spirit of the Montgomery bus boycott, who every night for over a year went back to the church at night to get their spiritual grounding.
Well, I was explaining this earlier.
Okay, hold that thought, right? They're invoking the spirit of the Montgomery bus boycott, right? So just hold that thought. I want you to hold that thought because I want to go back to Truth Unedited because, again,
you see, many blacks in America were tired of being mistreated and living in a land that did not care for them. Many people wanted to either leave America or set up their own system within the country. As I shared in part 2 when dealing with the Boule, one of the Boule's first roles in this country was to keep the professional blacks away from Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey started the grass movement. His idea was to make America start a settlement in Liberia to control rubber crops and other natural resources. He started a Back to Africa movement, and W.E.B. Du Bois, a Boule member, was tasked with stealing the black professionals from the influence of Garvey because it went against the ultimate agenda. They wanted the Negroes in this country to assimilate and find refuge within their government system and not turn away from its influence. So they turned up the pressure, severely oppressing the black community, hosing them down, burning their houses and communities, beating and killing them. I mean, pure oppression. People who want to discredit our struggles here in America often want to say, well, every race of people had slaves. But what most people don't seem to understand is our plight after slavery was abolished.
I always make that argument. Reparations is not about slavery. It's not about black people being slaves. It's what happened, the court nations against the group after slavery. But he goes into what we're going to talk about. He's going to talk about a concept called the social gospel. And this is basically what people like Pastor Jamal Bryant are ministering to the unfortunate lemmings that followed him. This is a social gospel, okay? And this is a very manipulating gospel if you claim to be one of God's people, because it has you focus on making this world under the kingdoms of men better. It forces you to think that you have the power to change the realities of Satan's world. It makes you sort of like a deliverer of peace, a savior to a world that your God says is going to be destroyed and is going to be replaced by his son's kingdom, right? But this is not what these people are teaching. Their people know they're teaching them the social gospel. So let's go into what he's talking about.
And he steered the conversation, leading us to a promised land that was not biblically inspired, though he portrayed himself as a minister of the gospel. But there is an important point that was not known or understood, or maybe brought to the attention of most people during this time. And because people were so oppressed and they were looking for a solution, what they were hearing at the time sounded credible to them. What I'm talking about is the social gospel. You see, the gospel was changed within the black church, and the people were no longer looking to be under the power of Yah and move for his kingdom to come, but they were now working toward their own kingdom.
Hey, give me one
I covered this subject once, but I need to revisit
Thanks.
it. The social gospel movement is not something that started
I'm not
within
going to
the
stay
black
on
church.
long.
It was a social reform movement that gained traction in the United States after the Civil War. And this is important if you're going to understand what happened here with King's Dream. The advocates of this movement interpreted the kingdom of God as requiring social as well as individual salvation, and sought the betterment of industrialized society through application of the biblical principles of charity and justice. The social gospel emphasized how the ethical teachings of Jesus could fix the problems caused by Gilded Age capitalism. Movement leaders took Yahushua's message of love thy neighbor into the pulpits. They published books and lectured about it all across the country. Other leaders, mostly women, ran settlement houses designed to reduce the suffering of immigrants living in cities like Boston, New York, and Chicago. Their mission was to draw attention to the problems of poverty and inequality, especially in America's growing cities. They drew attention to the problem, and then the churches showed a humane solution through their social gospel. It's order out of chaos. Charles Sheldon, a minister of Topeka, Kansas, explained the idea behind the social gospel in his 1897 novel, In His Steps. He argued, to be a Christian, one needed to walk in Jesus' footsteps. The book's slogan, "What Would Jesus Do?" became a central theme of the social gospel movement.
So I remember when I was in middle school, they used to have these bracelets. It was WWJD, what would Jesus do? That was such a popular bracelet when I was in middle school.
Which also became tied to a belief in what Ohio minister Washington Gladden called social salvation. This concept emphasized that religion's fundamental purpose was to create systemic changes in American political structures. So because of this, the social gospel leaders supported legislation for an 8-hour workday, the abolition of child labor, and government regulation of business monopolies, among other policies. They were not moving according to what the word said. They adopted the word to fit it into their own lives and their own causes. The purpose of American Christian faith was not for Yah's will to be done, but to create systemic changes in America and next the world. And it's from this social gospel that the gospel in America was subtly changed. People were preaching about Jesus, but the purpose of Yah's coming kingdom had changed to creating a more perfect system on earth for all the inhabitants through their own power. They were trying to create heaven on earth. And this social gospel was spread amongst the masses for a century. They were
So, I mean, and you see this all the time. And I was actually just reflecting on this when I always go through history, the behaviors of world empires. And one thing that never changes is that you'll have leaders, these pharaohs, Caesars, it doesn't matter. These people, these leaders, these kings, whatever, they make themselves deities, right? And their kingdom, and they build these kingdoms, and instead of it being like this kingdom that is reflective of the kingdom that is promised to believers, right? These kingdoms are tyrannical. A lot of times you look at the history of kingdoms of man, they're tyrannical, right? They give false illusion, right? But at the same time, people are so ingrained in these kingdoms and how they function, nationalistic towards these kingdoms, that they don't realize that these kingdoms are setting them up, if they're a believer, right, to have the heart condition of Lot's wife, right? You listen to a lot of these pastors, and they're promoting to their flock to be wealthy. They're promoting to their flock to have riches and notoriety and all that stuff. And these are things that they claim that God wants for us to have, right? But the way that they deliver those desires so out of context that it leads the people who listen to believe that it is their life's purpose to be just striving after the wind. And I was reading the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a great book to read. I think that Ecclesiastes, if you're a reasonable person and you're really just trying to understand really the cycles of life, how unfair life is, how, no matter how powerful, no matter how wise you are, we all end up at the same fate. The wise man and the foolish man, they both die. The rich man and the poor man, they both die, right? So a lot of this social gospel that these people are preaching are really just strivings after the wind, is what I'm saying. And I just thought it was very enlightening, because not only is it strivings after the wind, you got whole black people pulling their damn products out of 1,000 stores to stand up for for this social gospel of fasting from Target for 40 days. And they're conflating the word, right? And they're doing this in the name of what? Political, social power. You're not doing it in the name of God, because God could care less what you doing with Target if you're buying or selling from them. And that's just word 100. But off of that, you got your clothes in 1,000 Target stores, and you got these wacky ass Democrats out here convincing you that you need to be virtuous and pull your products from this store because the store doesn't want to support some DEI. That is insane to me. That is insane. Let me get to my comments and then I'm going to get out of here. Insane is what I think it is. All right, let me go here. And what's think it is. Okay, let me mute that so I don't double. Okay, so let me go here. What's going on, chat? I see you. You said so. You said Trump says he can fix everything, so I'll stick with him. Hey, if you think that Trump is Jesus, I can't tell nobody who to believe in. Um, yep. All praises to the God in heaven, Yahuwah, and the King Yahusha. And I mean, the thing is, and you know what? It's been on my heart to tell this to my young, people of faith in general, but I always talk to my brothers. Y'all need to read the entire book of Ecclesiastes. We need brothers mentoring other brothers in just the book of Ecclesiastes. All right? We would turn out much better men if we tutored our brothers in the book of Ecclesiastes. This is my opinion. There's so much wisdom in that book. There's so many learning curves in this book. It's arguable who wrote the book. I believe, just based off the perspectives, things that were being said, that Solomon wrote that book. And it's very fitting that it would be Solomon who wrote that book and had all of those learning curves, because at the end of the day, he had riches, he had women, he had power, he had notoriety, and yet this man did not die in the favor of the God of Abraham. He did not die in the favor of the God of his forefathers. Matter of fact, he allowed a lot of his curiosities and acquiring the wrong wisdom to lead him away from his God. So you don't want to be like Solomon in the end, because he allowed all of those distractions to move him away from his God. But I say that, young brothers definitely need to start digesting the book of Ecclesiastes. All right, because a lot of you guys don't have purpose, you don't have meaning, and a lot of times it starts with just kind of taking the wisdom from another man. And even though Solomon made poor decisions, he was at least in his older age able to reflect on where he went wrong. And he is paying those lessons forward to you young men specifically. I don't look at Ecclesiastes is for everybody, but it's specifically for the young men, for men, right? It is a book of wisdom that I think a lot of young men should follow. But let me know what you guys think about these social gospel folks, right? Pastor Jamal Bryant, he was on Roland Martin about 9 hours ago. He posted this.
This book here, the Montgomery bus boycott and the women who started.
And they still talking about the bus boycotts and everything that happened back in the day. But, people can be addicted to whatever, struggles they want to. But what do y'all think about Black business owners who are in Target stores pulling their products away? He mentioned a brother who had his clothes in over 1,000 Target stores, pulling his clothes out of the stores because of their rollback of DEI initiatives. What are we thinking about that? It seems like to me, when it comes to people rallying Black people up to do stuff, I just really sometimes don't see the end game to some of this stuff at all. It seems like it hurts Black people more a lot of times in little isolated situations than it actually benefits any of us. Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about the bus boycotts and how his family had one of a major bus company, one of the first Black-owned, or if not the only Black-owned bus company. He mentioned that they had over 500 buses, and he said that those boycotts, they didn't just hurt the white businesses, they hurt his business too. I don't even understand how the Black folks didn't even understand that his folks were the ones with them other buses. I don't get how his family got impacted by that bus boycott, but apparently his family got impacted, and I'm not sure if it eventually put them out of business or what, but it seems like Black people are inspired to do shit that sabotage our own people. It's like a slick, colorful way of getting Black people to destroy other black people without even having to pull a Black Wall Street on us. Like, so if you got brothers and sisters, you got over 1,442 black products in Target, and you're telling black business owners, black people to boycott Target, and you have black business owners that are pulling their products from Target. I'm just trying to figure out, how do those business owners win in the end? Because Target is still going to stay their course on DEI, even if you don't want your products there. Guess what? There's always a white people product there to replace, and there's always another black product or another black person that don't care about all that crazy stuff, and they can replace your shelf space. So let me know what you guys think. Let me get into the comments. You said slippery slope. You said Nat Turner Bible. So funny, Nina Turner is the one who's really talking about this, boycott that. I'm like, honey, it's not going to work. And from what I understand, I was looking for all kinds of news to see if Target, in fact, did lose 15 billion, and I can't find anything that would substantiate that. So I don't even think that's true. I just think it's some of these, black brulee type of people trying to make it seem like their initiatives are effective, and they're probably not. Let's see. Every person that ever been in his position has lied and never done what they said. Every one of them has probably lied, but many of them have done. Okay, I got to go back up to catch up what you were saying. You said, why do you think that so many people are starting whole new religions? I don't know. I mean, I didn't even know that people were actually out there starting religions. I know, me personally, I don't really associate myself with being a part of a religion. I follow the God of Abraham, and I believe in the ancient Hebrew faith. And I do believe that there's a difference between an Israelite Hebrew and a Jew. And so Jews follow Judaism, which is an extension of the Abrahamic faith ideas, just like Christianity is an extension of the Abrahamic faith idea, and so is Islam. But I don't associate myself with any of those denominations, even though one would think our common link is the God of Abraham. It's not. These people don't even use his name. And my God tells me to call upon his name. So if you're afraid to call upon the name of the God of Abraham, you're a demon, and you probably need to make some adjustments in your life to get that spirit that's attached to you away from you, so that you can call on the name of the God of Abraham with freeness and without restraint. Some of you people, you got the devil in you, and unfortunately, maybe you don't know it, right? Maybe you do. But I believe that God told us to say his name, and we are to say his name to differentiate him from any other God, right? And so all praises to the God in heaven, Yahuwah, and his King, Yahusha. But anyways, you guys, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Let me know what you think about the Black Brulee. Let me go ahead and put this link in there. This is the Truth Unedited. And our brother is kind of breaking down Michael King,
Jesus,
a.k.a. Mr. Martin Luther King. They gave that man a fake-ass name so they could add a little credibility to him. But apparently, Martin Luther King name is Michael King. And I mean, and I've always thought, like, wow, was Martin Luther King Protestant or something? I'm like, what are the odds that he would have the same name as, the Protestant Reformation leader, Martin Luther, right? And I guess it wasn't really a coincidence that wasn't his name. So let me put this in the chat so that if you guys want to check that out, you can. And shout out to Michi X too, because she was talking about how we've been, pulled the old okey doke on us when it came to Martin Luther King too. So, and then here you go. This is Roland Martin. If you guys want to get into that Target boycott, which I don't think is going to do too much to Target at all. But you said the fact that you don't see it isn't even infuriating. It's tragic. What's infuriating? Don't see what is infuriating. Everything he's done is bad. Nothing he has done. I'm sorry. I'm trying to see. Now I'm trying to get into. I guess I got to catch up. You said Yahweh. You know, it's interesting. I was actually looking at an archaeologist, and some people may say Yahweh. I think there's some people that say Yahuwah because I don't think that people really understood what the vowels were. I think Jehovah is another way, that common English way that we say it. But I think like with Jesus, I've been really trying to get out of the habit of saying Jesus, and just using his Hebrew name, Yahusha or Yeshua, you know. I want to get away from the Roman identity of Messiah and all that stuff. So they really Romanized Messiah, and I don't like that. They made him white and everything. So a lot of apostasy going on in the world, perpetuated apostasy. And, you know, everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe, right? You want to believe in Roman Jesus, that's fine, right? I'll believe in the actual Hebrew and his God and those practices of the of his forefather and people. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And tomorrow we are going to be talking about Elon. You ever see that movie Office Space? He's giving the bobs, right? So I'm going to go over an article from the CDC employees are talking about how Elon is giving them 48 hours to prove that they are valuable people. And so I really and kind of to talk about what they do. And so like when I read that, I was just thinking about that scene in Office Space with the Bobs where they're like interviewing people about their jobs, and they're like, you know, so what exactly do you do here, right? That's kind of what Elon is pulling off at the CDC right now, according to some of those employees. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But until then, y'all be safe in Satan's, world. The world is passing away, and so is its desires. But he that does the will of God remains forever. And I do encourage you guys to, if you just need to just digest it one book at a time, I always encourage people to start with, books like Proverbs, right? These are the inspiration books. We live in a world where people need affirmations. And it's like, I can't give you an affirmation, but I can give you some inspiration. And, going through the Proverbs, going through the Psalms, and going through Ecclesiastes is a really good thought. And when you're thinking about Solomon, think about all the mistakes that this man made. He prayed for wisdom. He was granted wisdom, but it was that thirst for wisdom that led that man astray. And so sometimes you can be wise in the wrong things, and it can lead you down the wrong path. So encourage our young brothers to pick up that book and read the entire book of Ecclesiastes, the entire book of Ecclesiastes. All right. I think some of you guys will thank me. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you would not disrespect or abuse yourself, do not disrespect or abuse your neighbor. Bye.